In our second episode of Broker Breakdown, we're talking to Sam Khorramian, who's the co-founder of Big Block Realty, which he's grown to over 1,400 agents and billions of dollars in sales. Sam tells us about his initial strategy for recruiting and the pivot that he made to develop an attraction model where agents started to come to him, and also how video played a key role in that entire process. There's a ton of value in this conversation. Let's get into it. Sam, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me on, guys. Very excited to be a part of your show.
Yeah, I've been looking forward to it. So I want to start out with the thing that I think a lot of people are probably wondering about, which is, you opened your brokerage about 9 years ago, and you guys have already grown to the point where you have 1,400 agents, and you're starting to franchise all across the country, which is, in my opinion, really impressive, very monumental accomplishment. So tell us a little bit about how you did that. How did you not only grow to that extent so quickly, but also sustain that growth over that long a period of time?
Yeah, of course. Great question. We got into this business. All we've ever done is real estate. But I say that saying that we came into the brokerage world as salespeople. And, today I work with a lot of different brokers and brokerages and even do some consulting. And what I found is that a lot of times brokers become brokers because they want to get out of sales, right? They're tired of maybe, doing the listings and doing the sales side of business. We took a very different approach, and there's a few things we focused on. One was we're going to go very heavy in sales. I believe that as a broker, my job is to create attention, leveraging phone calls, online content, video, which we'll probably dive into. But to create attention and recruit agents, right? If you're not recruiting, you're going backwards is our belief. So we went really heavy with just outbound dialing and calling and generating a lot of attention and setting appointments. So it started with, all right, let's just treat this like an agent will treat getting a listing, right? Like if you're going to be an agent and you're going to be successful, you got to be on the phone. You got to be making calls. And it's the same thing for being a successful brokerage. You got to be on the phone. You got to make the calls. So originally it was me and my business partner, Oliver, making calls. And then we kind of grew it to a team of 6 or 7 different people in what we called the boiler room. And they were just in there every day making dials. And we learned over time, we do really good recruiting from this brokerage and this brokerage. And we would, learn how to fine tune our pitch based off of the company we're talking to. That's kind of what really got things going. Now, at the time, 9 years ago, almost nobody was talking about video marketing. No one was talking about content. No one was, so we did a few things. One, we went really heavy in teaching agents for free. We were doing free seminars, free education courses where through Meetup and Facebook, we would promote these events, and we bring in agents for a free 3-hour training, and we'd be talking to them about online marketing, content creation, video marketing, showing them how to leverage YouTube. And the goal with that was very simple. The idea was, man, if we can get these agents to come into a free training, and in that training, in that 3 hours, we can give them more value in terms of how to grow their business than their current brokerage already is doing, and we're giving it to them for free, what is that agent going to think? They're going to think, man, Sam and Oliver and Big Block, they've given me more training on this stuff, and I'm not even paying them yet. Imagine what happens when I become one of their agents, right? Imagine what happens when I'm part of the team. So we went really heavy, and we were doing those every other week, twice a month. We were very lucky that at the time we had a really small office, but the office had an event center that you could rent for free. So we leveraged Meetup, we leveraged Facebook, we would fill these rooms. We did a lot of outreach, right? I had the team calling, and we were either trying to set appointments to learn about the company or invite them to come check out our free training. And then the other thing that really started to change things for us is, I talk about this with Jeff all the time. Gary Vee said something many years ago that really stuck with me. He said, when you're really good at your job, You will always remain in the position where you're hunting for business. But the moment you become a somebody, the business will start to hunt you. Right? And we wanted people to be hunting us. We wanted the inbounds. We wanted agents to want to be a part of our company. So we went heavy into bringing a full video marketing team. For us at the time, it was a stretch, and now there's a lot better solutions that can help with it. But back then, there was no one offering these services. So we brought in a videographer, we brought in an editor. Jeff has met these people, and we really just started to record everything we did. The video camera was always on. It doesn't matter if we were messing around and eating lunch, or if I was doing a training, or if we were in a meeting, or if we were out at happy hour with the team, we were recording everything. And what we ended up doing was making more noise. At the time, again, nobody was making noise with video, and we were just going heavy. And here's a big thing that I think a lot of brokerages, if you're thinking about recruiting, should consider, is a lot of times people will decide to join your company for your value prop, or they'll start to decide, right? Maybe it's your commission structure, maybe it's your lead gen, maybe it's your training, right? There's these things that generate their attention. But ultimately, they want to be a part of something that they think elevates them and elevates where they're at, and something that they're proud of, something that they're excited to be in. And for us, we're just a fun group. And I wasn't going to allow us being in a traditional real estate world to turn into every other, traditional brokerage. And we just recorded us being us. And we would put out content, and that's all those things combined really started to tell the audience out there, man, these guys and this company is different.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, there's, thank you, because there's like 4 different threads I'm already thinking of to kind of follow up on all that with. So let's start here, because I want to kind of come back to some of the earlier part of that answer, which was simply the fact that you understood that, hey, if I'm going to take this next step, I'm selling even more, right? I mean, recruiting, I used to do a lot of recruiting, and there was the phrase was often that, like, recruiting is the highest form of sales. It's the hardest kind of sale you're ever going to do. I mean, you're basically, convincing someone to give you a significant percentage of their life, right? I mean, it's 40 hours a week of their time. So why do you think that happens, that a lot of brokers, get into being a broker because they're trying to get out of sales? Because it sounds like it's almost a complete opposite attitude. And do you think that that's what's holding a lot of these brokers back, is just sort of an attitude of, I don't do sales anymore, so they're not as aggressive on that front? Or do you think there's something else they might be getting tripped up by?
I think that everyone has their own internal dialogue, and everyone puts certain labels on themselves, like, I don't do that, or that's not me. For me, I was very fortunate that the moment I got into real estate, I started following Mike Ferry, who many of you probably heard of, he's all about sales, right? Outbound, sales. So it was my real estate DNA, right? It's all I knew. And, when I transitioned from being an agent to a broker, I didn't have the money to go spend a bunch and do all this, let's say just marketing. So I did what we knew how to do, which was I wrote a really good recruiting script, and I picked up the phone, and I would get kicked around a lot. And then eventually we found our stride, and we would set appointments. But I'll tell you that I still go to a lot of like broker events, and often the biggest topic is recruiting. And I do find that a lot of brokers, they just don't want to make the calls, or they feel, and they probably are, too busy to make the time to make the calls. But I looked at it like, well, especially when we're getting started, I have nothing else to do, right? Like it's either recruit agents or go broke. But then as we got busier, I didn't have the time to make the calls, but I didn't allow that to be an excuse. We legit started hiring just straight telemarketers. And we got a sales room in the office. There were 6 of them in a small little office. They were all talking over each other. And I had a big calendar on the wall. And every time they set an appointment, they would go ring the dong, the big gong or whatever it's called. Did I say dong? I meant gong.
Yeah, but if that's what you guys call it, that's fine. Yeah.
So they would hit the gong, and they would write the name of the person they set the appointment with. And it was a challenge every day. It was like, who's going to set most appointments? And these guys were competing against each other. And we just, our culture, our environment, our DNA at the time, it was all outbound dialing. And it's like, who's going to set the most appointments? And here's the important thing is for the first 2 months, these guys were setting like maybe one appointment a week. And then after they started to learn the process, our average recruiter was setting anywhere from 8 to 12 appointments a week.
Wow.
So you have to imagine we had at most 7 people. Let's just say we had 4. You have 4 that are setting 10 appointments a week. You know what I mean? And at the time, we would have a 50% show up rate. So that means we were meeting with about 20 agents a week. And it was me doing all the recruitment presentations. So I went from making the calls to having the team make the calls and me being in the room. And obviously over time, our show up rate went up, our conversion rates went up. And it was all a factor of, a lot of brokers or even recruiters, they have the blinders on thinking that, man, the best recruiter I've seen in my whatever office recruits 20 agents a year. I'm like, no, like we're recruiting 20 agents a month. Like if you want to do this and you want to be here, like that's the standard. And we set crazy audacious goals. I remember one of the guys who never hit the goal because he left before, but he was close. I was like, dude, you get to 150 agents recruited, I'll go get you any car you want. And he's like, I want a Mercedes AMG. I'm like, 150 agents, that's worth it for me. Like you got an AMG. Took him, test drove it, and so we set these big goals and we hit the phone hard.
I love it. Yeah. And I love the idea too of sort of gradually phasing yourself up to the higher positions in that chain. Because I think that, that's a part that I think gets overlooked a lot is that if you've done it, you know how to teach somebody else how to do it and at least get them to a decent place when they're starting. And then they can build momentum. And obviously you're building the whole culture around that idea of just perpetual improvement, perpetual growth. So that's all amazing. So I want to come back, so I love this idea of, especially when you're getting started, first you're the one hitting the phone, you've got your script, then you're building out a team to help support it. And you're just sort of continuing to build that momentum. When you got to the point where you started to do the events, right? Because I do think one thing I think is interesting here is, as you mentioned before we got on the interview here, that Big Block is 100% commission, right? And so that to me, there's a lot of these businesses where it seems like over the past 20, 30 years, brokerages have really competed on that front, right? Sort of driving the commission up and up and the splits sort of shifting in the favor of the agent. And now we've sort of reached the limit of that, I think. And so you're starting to see brokerages look for other ways to compete. And obviously you found one, which is this idea of this education, right? You said it perfectly, which is, hey, if I'm giving you this much for free and we're not even working together yet, think about what you're going to get after that. So from that perspective, because I think this is where a lot of people get really held up, is I don't want to give away my best stuff, right? I don't want to teach people too much for free because then, what are they going to, how are they going to get them to sign up, right? To sort of put that gate out there in front of them. And I was wondering when you were saying this, how long it would take Gary Vee to come up, right? Because Gary's the champion of that being wrong, right? And we should just be given as much as we can.
Yep.
So, where did that come from? Like when you first had that idea of like, let's do these events, let's teach people. I mean, were you all in from day one? Is this sort of stemming from Gary Vee, or did you see somebody else having success with it? Where did that come from?
It was a combination of, yes, Gary Vee, right? Like Gary, listening to him 9 years ago, most people didn't even know who he was, but like for whatever reason, we found him and he really, he's always the voice in the back of our heads, and that's a big part of it. But what we didn't talk about before we went live is before we started Big Block, we had a seminar business where we were teaching people how to buy and sell real estate. And my partner and I hired some of the best coaches and learned just how to run events. And at the time we were selling courses to get people into a room so that we could sell them coaching for like $25,000 or whatever it was. And we just took that same thought process, and instead of trying to sell them coaching for $25,000, we were like, hey, join our brokerage and you're going to get all of these things that we teach. and we normally would charge thousands and thousands of dollars for. By joining, you get it all for free. You get me as your coach, and all we're going to ask you to do is do some deals and put these things into practice. And obviously, as a 100% shop, it's not like they don't pay us. We're still getting paid, but they're just getting closer to 100% commission a lot faster than they would in a lot of the other outfits out there. And it was those two things. We came from the seminar business, and we really understood the idea that, no, let's give them our best stuff up front. I would literally, like, the presentation that we would bring them into, and we had about 7 of them that were on rotation. It was the very best stuff I knew and I could teach at the time. The very best. Like, there was nothing else I could give that was better than that. Because what they don't need, agents don't need more ideas. What do they need? They need accountability. They need encouragement. They need safety. So, like, I don't need to teach them anything new than what I taught them at that free event. But when they come and join the company, they need the accountability. They need the coaching. They need the hand-holding. They need the encouragement. They need hey, go get them, like, way to go, Tiger, right? Like, that's what they need. So, if you're thinking, why give them the best stuff up front, I'll tell you, because if you don't, there's a guy like me that is, and that's what you're going up against.
Nick, if I can chime in too, I want to go back to what he said, because one of the reasons why I wanted to invite Sam on was because of how Sam and I met. And part of it was because he found me because I was doing unique video at the time that nobody else was doing. I'm a mortgage guy, by the way. Sam's real estate. Everybody know how that works. Real estate doesn't reach out to mortgage, right? But that's where it allowed me to find that opportunity. And it goes back to what Sam said, which Sam then became a model by which I wanted to build my business. And it was that mindset of, how do you attract? Once you become a somebody, the business starts to chase you mentality. In fact, I have that quote in most of my presentations still to this day. But the reason I wanted to chime in and say something is because this applies to everybody. All sales, whether you're a real estate agent, whether you're a broker, whether you're a team lead. And I know you think about it and it seems cliche or maybe even over your head. Like, I don't know that I'll ever become Gary Vee. No, you're right. You won't. But if you position yourself and you're seen more often, AKA what I did to get seen by the Sams of the world, which was my target. So you just flip the script a little bit. If you're a real estate agent and if you're seen more often in your community, you're going to be thought about more often. Therefore, you're the somebody that they're going to seek. And if you're a broker or a team lead, this is exactly how you attract. This is why Sam has 1,400 agents. And this is exactly what you want to do if you're a team leader trying to grow a team, or you're a broker trying to grow a brokerage. And this is exactly what people like Sam are the perfect model to follow. And you need to go follow guys like Sam.
Thanks, Jeff. And I want to connect the dot on there real quick. I don't know how much time we have, but I want to connect this because I think that people are still they're stuck. If you're not doing video yet, it's because you're still stuck on the bus benches, the billboards, the newspapers. And I want to give you some credit there if that's you. Growing up, my family got transferred to San Diego. They bought a house in La Jolla, and my parents ended up splitting. And when they wanted to sell their house, how many agents do you think they called? They called one agent and gave that one agent the listing. And I knew the agent because they had all the billboards, all the bus benches. They were everywhere in La Jolla. And I remember asking my dad, at the time I'm like 16, and my dad, big Persian accent, very conservative, like straight to the point. I'm like, Dad, like, there's so many agents. Why did you only interview one? And he says, Baba, everywhere I go, I see them. I'm in the grocery store, they're there. I drive by, they're on the bus bench. I open newspaper, they're there. Everywhere I go, I see them. They're the best. That's who I hire. And for my dad, old school mentality, back then, there wasn't video and retargeting and everything that we're talking about. So, that agent team, they had to get the bus benches. They had to have the divider at the grocery checkout station. They had to do the newspaper and be in the magazine because they didn't have what we have today. And guess what? They had to spend way more money to be everywhere than we do today with the power of video, content, retargeting, and everything that we're talking about. So if you're stuck in the where my dad was, and you're not here yet today doing what we're talking about, it's the same thing. And guess what? It's easier and cheaper. It just might be a little uncomfortable.
I love that. Yeah. And so my follow-up on that, because that's a great point, is I think the thing that a lot of people struggle with, in addition to sort of thinking too old school, right, sort of focusing on those older forms of method or marketing, is that when you get into the more modern stuff and you start talking about social media, you start talking about video, it's way more expansive, right? I mean, you talk about a bus bench, there's only one kind of bus bench, right? You put your face on it, you put a couple words and you're done, versus now it's sort of an endless amount of options, right? At least that's what a lot of our students struggle with. So what would you tell somebody that's sort of facing that, where they realize like, all right, I know I need to start doing video. I know I need to start getting into social, thinking about retargeting, thinking about these ads. Where do they start? I mean, can you give us some suggestions on kind of what the first couple steps should look like?
Yeah, I have a few thoughts. My first thought is everybody hates the way they look online, especially for the first year, right? Like when I look at myself online, I see things that I don't like. And chances are that the things that bug me, other people aren't seeing. Because guess what? That's how you show up in real life, right? Like that's how people see you face to face. So the camera doesn't add 10 pounds. It adds 10 pounds of insecurity, right? So like you got to get past like the insecureness and understand like this is who you are. This is how you show up. I have this stupid snaggle tooth I haven't fixed my whole life. And in the beginning, it used to bug me. And now it's just like I don't even notice it anymore. But early on, that would stop me. Now I'll tell you, so I say that to say just start and don't worry about being perfect. But you have to have a plan to become better. And for me, it's a couple of things that we've done and my advice to you. When we were really trying to scale the company, there was a gentleman by the name of Corey Boatwright who was a mentor to us. And I think, Jeff, you've met him. And we did a retreat with him in Hawaii. And he said something that really stuck with me. He said, because every time we were talking about doing stuff, I was like, yeah, but, how do I do it? And yeah, but I don't understand it. And he said something that sticks with me, and I say to the team all the time. He said, Sam, you're right. The hard work and the things that you don't know need to get done, but it doesn't always mean that you have to be the person that does it. So instead of trying to figure it out on your own, seek counsel or hire people that have done it better than you and can either guide you or do it for you. And there's two types of people. There's a type of people like me that might have too big of an ego and say, no, I can figure it out on my own. I can do it all. Me. And because of that label, that stupid label I put on myself, I don't reach out and I don't ask for help. Or you're the type of person that says, oh, I can't afford it because it's too expensive or, I don't understand it or whatever it may be. Both of those are labels. And we have to learn that if we want to go to the next step, we have to start by removing that label. You might think you can't afford it, but that's because you haven't tried it. You might think that you're too good and you can do it all on your own, but you haven't had someone that's better than you do it yet. So you understand, holy crap, like why was I trying to figure this out on my own when this person, this coach, this company has already figured out how to do it for so many other people? So I'll finish that thought with this. When you pay for the best, you only cry once. When you try to figure it out on your own or you try to save a buck, you continue crying through the process. When you pay for the best, you only cry once. So, for example, you guys are the best. Like you do what you do really damn well. So that's my thought.
I love it. Yeah, that's great. So I know we've talked, and we're running a little low on time, but I think we got a couple questions left here. We've talked a lot about recruiting, right? Obviously, recruiting is super important to growing a brokerage, but I want to talk about sort of the other side of the marketing for the company, right? Which is obviously building the brand, maybe trying to generate leads for the agents, that kind of stuff. Give us some pointers there. I mean, what are some things that you've seen success with, maybe in particular in the past year or two, for getting additional attention and growing the brand and maybe attracting business for some of your agents?
So my motto is on the generating leads for agents. I've always taken the hard stand that is not what you are hiring us for. If you want someone to generate leads for you, go join a team, and we have teams in our company that will give you leads. I'm a big believer of like, I'm staying in my lane, and my lane is to give you the best brokerage to work at that elevates you. And I'm not going to make it a pitch. All the things that I think are important as a brokerage, that's what I'm going to deliver on. I don't believe that generating leads is my role. If you need that, join a team. But my role is to get your attention and give you the opportunity to learn about the best brokerage that I believe is made for you. And you as an agent should believe that you're the best agent for the clients that are thinking about buying or selling. So I don't say that to pound my chest. I say that because that's how you should think. And that's what I think. I really do think that we created the best. And I believe that you should think that you are the best solution for your clients. So I'll tell you a couple of things that have worked really well. Back to the training thing. About how long ago, Jeff? I mean, I think you were there when I started it, right when we met. Probably about 4 years ago, I started doing every Tuesday and Thursday at 9 a.m. an hour live Facebook broadcast where I had a big training room in my office. I had my team broadcasting live on Facebook. And most brokers, again, will say what? My training is for my agents. And if you want my training, you got to join my company. So this is the training that this is the agent training for our agents at Big Block. But instead of just keeping it in-house, we just simply went live on Facebook every week for an hour, twice a week. And what started to happen was the same thing that I talked about earlier with the events, except for when people would call in and the recruiters were working with them, they said, I really like the fact that Sam's doing these trainings and he's giving away all this info and he does it in his style, right? Like I am not trying to be someone else. I'm just authentically coming through as me in my training. I'm not trying to be Gary Vee. I'm not trying to be Gary Keller, right? Like I'm just me and I do my trainings and I don't stop. And that has just been really good for recruiting. Also been really great for my personal brand, right? The things that have come on the backside of that, business opportunities, ownership in different companies, consulting, emceeing one of the biggest stages in the world a couple years ago, Traffic and Conversion Summit. All of these things were on the backside of me just putting all this stuff out there. The other thing that we did that worked really well, and then like really smart business people, we stopped doing it because we're stupid. Remember I was saying like agents want to know what the inside of the company looks like before they join. Just like your buyer and seller or your buyer wants to know what the inside of the house looks like. They're not buying 123 Banana Street, 3-bedroom, 2-bath. What are they buying? They're buying the layout. They're buying the feel. They're buying the kitchen. That's what they're buying, right? So that means the address is just a prerequisite, just like 100% commission or being a brokerage is just a prerequisite of them being interested. What's on the inside? So we started a show called The Brokerage. And again, the cameras were always running. And every 2 weeks, we would put out a new episode of The Brokerage. And that was whatever happened those weeks. Sometimes it's us pulling pranks on each other, a little bit of training, a seminar, us in Vegas for an event, all in one episode. The other times it's whatever's going on that week or, and what we did is it was never join Big Block in the videos. I don't think we've ever said that in The Brokerage. It was just like, hey, come check out like what we do. And what we did is we were trying to make our own reality show. And what we ended up doing is, since we were recording everything, we said, how do reality shows run? And if you think about it, when you watch a segment or a snippet on the show, something funny, something crazy, something unreal, whatever happens, what does it usually break to next? It breaks to a person that was in that scene watching that video. You don't see it, but in front of them, behind the camera, they're watching the video, and then the producer says, tell me what happened there, right? And then Kim Kardashian or whoever was like, oh my gosh, my sister's so stupid, I can't believe she did that. So we did the same thing with the staff. Like, hey, you know, in one of the episodes, my recruiter, he put a bunch of open sardine cans in my office and some like raw fish, turned up the heater on a Friday, and I came in on Monday and I just like, the worst. And they recorded the whole thing. And in that process, that made it into the brokerage, and they showed me the clip. What did you think about that? And I said, I think Afshin is going to be in the unemployment line, right? Like, dude needs to look for a job. And they showed it to other people. And what am I trying to get at? That's what makes the culture come to life. And that's what helps them understand what's on the inside of the company. They know what's on the outside. They go on your website. This is what you offer. This is your team. This is your training. Everybody has that. But how do they know what to expect before they sign on the line? Because you said it, Nick, they're giving you 40 hours plus a week of their time. They're spending more time in your organization than sometimes their own house. And this is how they pay their bills and feed their kids. So why leave it up to the unknown? Instead, let's put it out there for the world to see. And some people will say, oh my gosh, that guy has a tattoo. He's unprofessional. They're too goofy. I'm not going to join. Great. You were not for us. And other people are going to say, oh my gosh, this guy's so goofy and does what he wants and has fun and turns a job that has a lot of stress into a fun place to work. That's where I want to be. And we're not built for everyone. No brokerage is built for everyone. But the people that see who we are and want to be a part of it, that's who we're there for.
So Sam, you've really built a lot of your business based on everything that you've described to us today. If you, let's just say 5 years ago, because obviously probably the first few years, it was really just figuring things out. But if 5 years ago, you would have had a platform that said, hey, we're going to train your agents to do video on their own, to do it better, because obviously there's services like Cuevas, who we're obviously in cahoots and friends with, who has a service where you pay more money to just have it done for you. But we have a service where we're going to train your agents how to create video, and it's going to be one monthly fee for the brokerage, and you get unlimited seats. If you would have had that 5 years ago, like what would your response have been to something like that?
How do I sign up? Like, where's the contract? Here's the thing. I already know what your challenge or your objection is when you're trying to sell this, because it's the same objection that any other service provider has when they're trying to sell any other service to any brokerage. Man, I'm spending money everywhere, right? And like, I just don't know that I can do this. That's all. It's always about the money. This is the thing. Do you want to know how to be the hardest brokerage to recruit from and the easiest brokerage to recruit into? Is the brokerage that increases production. Plain and simple. 100% commission, great. Training, great. Culture, great. You make me rich, I'm coming and I'm never leaving. And I believe that what you guys offer is not just a necessity, because if you're at a brokerage that's not teaching these things, you're going backwards, right? And I'm not saying that to be condescending or be rude. Like, you're just playing the wrong game, and it's gonna hurt in the future. But also, if you incorporate something like that into your company and you get your agents involved, they're gonna win, they're gonna make more money, and they're gonna stick, which all makes you more money. And then guess what? They're gonna tell their friends, dude, you got to come check this company out. Not only do they offer all these other things, I feel like a celebrity today. And to me, it's a no-brainer and something that every brokerage should figure out how they can afford, not just say they can't afford it or it's not valuable, because they will regret that decision.
Love it. Well, thank you. I appreciate that plug. So that being said, I want to give you, Sam, a chance to give us your plug as well. Because, I mean, if I was listening to this as an agent on the one hand, I mean, that, sounds like a great opportunity. I'd love to know more to work with you guys. But also, you mentioned, opening some franchises in other parts of the country, and there might be some interest there too. So give us your plug a little bit on both, and how does somebody get in contact with you?
Yeah, thanks for saying that, Nick. If anybody wants to learn more, obviously you can reach out to me on social or Instagram, Facebook, whatever, or you can just go to bigblock.com, bigblock.com, call the office or fill out a form. We are doing national expansion right now through franchising, and things are moving pretty quickly and looking for the right partners in the right markets. And if you're an agent in a market that we're in and would like to learn more, awesome, would love to chat with you. And then outside of that, if there's anything that I can do to support you guys, if you have any questions or anything like that, I'm always happy to help. And I'm a big believer that the most successful people are the most accessible people. And I'm always trying to make myself as accessible and really try to add as much value as possible. So,
love it. Cool. Well, that is all we have the time for today. Thank you so much for joining us, Sam.
Thank you, Nick. Thank you, Jeff. This was a lot of fun. And if there's anything I can do to help, let me know.
All right, will do. And for those of you tuning in, we appreciate you listening or watching, depending on where you're experiencing this right now. And we welcome you to join us again on future episodes. Thanks for tuning in. We'll talk to you soon.